All right, chapter 5, page 66. What is real estate? This chapter really goes over the 5 key elements of real estate, which is the bundle of legal rights. All right, there are some things you need to really know in this chapter that we're going to see these things as you're practicing now. So, what is real estate? We're going to talk about what is land versus real estate, property versus personal property, things like that. So the bundle of rights is what we call the property ownership, the use of the property and its legal manner. So when a person purchases a parcel of real estate, he or she is actually buying the rights that were previously held by the previous owner. They're buying the rights. So you can have the rights to the property, and then it'd be the interest in the property be different. So that's kind of where the next 2 chapters get a little crazy. But the bundle of rights itself is the use of the property in any legal manner, the enjoyment of the property, the ability to exclude people or keep them away from the property, to dispose of the property, or what we call alienation. You can sell or give it away. And then also, if you look at the top of 67 in figure 5.1, it says the ability to control the property and possess it. So in a lot of different manners, especially when we get into the chapter about leasing property, the tenants also have some of these rights: the right to possess the property, to enjoy the property. They can't dispose of it. They can't exclude people. So there's going to be some similarities when we get to that chapter. So pay particular attention. On the page 66, the bottom right-hand side, so within these ownership rights are included further rights to improve, devise, which means to leave by will. You can mortgage it, you can encumber it, you can cultivate, you can explore, mine, build, lease, license, dedicate, give away, abandon, share, trade, or exchange the property. You can do all those things with these rights. On page 67, land versus real estate. So the term land and real estate, although sometimes used to describe the same thing, have really distinct differences. The term land refers to the surface of the earth, including the water and anything attached to it by nature, such as trees and bushes. It also includes the mineral rights, which is below the surface, and it also includes the air rights, which is to infinity and beyond. I like to say to infinity and beyond, a little Toy Story action there. That's what land is. Now, real estate goes one step further, broaden the meaning by saying that it's defined as everything above, and also all man-made improvements. So you want to highlight that. And the word improvement includes both the buildings erected on the land, streets, utilities, sewers, and other manufactured additions to the property. So it's pretty important to understand that we have land and we have then real estate, which includes all the man-made improvements as well. As we start to talk about this coming up, we talk about fixtures, what's attached, what's not attached. If something is a fixture, then it becomes personal property. We start to get into that now. So start thinking about that as we go forward. Okay? So real estate, it's really everything defined: the land, subsurface, air rights, and the improvements. Real estate then is defined as the earth's surface extending downward to the center of the earth and upward into space, including all things permanently attached to it by nature or by people, and all the rights, benefits, and interests in it. Perhaps could be a test question. So the terms real estate, real property, and realty are usually used interchangeably and include both what we call corporeal, which is tangible assets like buildings and trees, and also incorporeal, which is intangible assets like views and rights. Sometimes it's a little hard for us to put our heads around that because we talk about the intangible things such as the beautiful view or the view of the ocean, and that is a right and an asset in any property or in its location. The subsurface rights, well, it's basically what it is. It's the mineral rights, anything below the ground, oil, gold, whatever else you have in the ground, you have the rights to those. So all these can be sold off, by the way, and we're getting to that. You can sell off the mineral rights, you can sell off the rights on top of the ground, on the surface rights, and then you can sell off the air rights. We see this a lot of times in, like, say, New York City, where the buildings, Rockefeller Center, Pan Am building, the MetLife building, which is actually the Pan Am building, Grand Central Station. They sold off the lower, the bottom part, which is the ground rights to the subway system. The building was sold off, and then the air rights were sold off to, TV stations at the time and so forth and so on. Now, of course, it's cell towers. So you can actually divide your property into those different categories and sell off each of those rights to the property. So if we look at 67 at the bottom, the figure 5.2, surface and subsurface rights, it kind of gives you an idea. You may still own the property, but yet sell off the oil rights, if you're so fortunate to have found oil on your property, which would be kind of a cool thing. Kind of like the Beverly Hillbillies, right? All right, on page 68, we talk about riparian rights. Riparian rights. Let me just make sure we flip ahead here into the slides. We have the possession, of course, control, enjoyment, exclusion, disposition. We talk about the ability to abandon share rights. We have land surface rights. And of course, we have this thing called the earth extending downward. A specific tract, which I did not mention, specific tract of land is commonly referred to as a parcel. We use that word kind of interchangeably and sometimes a bit loosely. You've got a parcel of land, we call it a parcel. A parcel is something that's big, right? That's the actual the whole piece. That's the legal boundaries that defined it. Again, improvements, building structures that are erected on the land, streets, utilities. Purposes of me not clicking through here, just clicking through and reading again. Formal definition, including all things permanently attached to it by nature and by people, is held real estate. Now, again, subsurface rights, air rights, water rights, incorporeal, tangible. Incorporeal, intangible, corporeal, tangible. We won't see those words much past the exam. You might get one question that refers to it, but it'll further define it. Okay? Therefore, you can sell all rights, gas rights, copper rights, all that stuff. Everything above the property you can sell off. Of course, now we're on riparian, which is on page 68. So now I'm ahead on this. Now I'm up to date on the screens. My finger's not working here. Okay, so riparian, we have to remember land bordered or traversed by a river, stream, or waterway. It's basically non-navigable water that is split in the middle. And that is what riparian is. So riparian, it starts with an R, R-I, river. Okay, that's how I remember it. Riparian, river. Okay, land bordering, traversed by a river or stream, non-navigable. Normally when two properties have a stream as their common border, the dividing line between the two properties is the middle of the stream. If the stream were suddenly to change its course, that process is known as avulsion. Okay? Avulsion. And if we look at the chart at 5.3, you can see where non-navigable streams, you have the middle point being where it divides. Whereas in a navigable river, the ownership ends at the edge of the water. Okay, so avulsion is where the stream suddenly changes its direction. Accretion is an increase of land caused by the gradual depositing of solid material. The word accretion has the words increase in there, if you see it. Increase, we would remember that. Okay, is the land is increasing land by the depositing of solid material. That solid material is called alluvion. By the continuous body of water, it is the opposite of erosion. So when we think of erosion, we think of the water coming in on the shoreline, right, crashing on it, pulling the sand out, and it just eats it away, and then slowly or quickly the beach is gone. Well, just the opposite happens with accretion, where the water comes in and deposits the material, and then the land increases, much like a sandbar. Think of it like a sandbar. Okay, that's how I would sort of remember this. Now, interestingly enough, in Dubai, they're making land. It's crazy. I don't know if you know this. Those islands that are the palms. Well, those are all man-made, and how they were doing it is a simple process. They basically go out deeper, dredge the material in, and just start, depositing it in these areas, and they're building it up so much that it creates landmass. Now they're building big buildings on there. I'm like talking, big structures. That would be a form of accretion, only by man-made. It's very interesting. Especially if you Google it, you can watch them do it. It's pretty intense. Now, we do this at the Jersey Shore. I've seen the dredging barges out a little bit. I guess it was in Ocean City, where they were actually out a little bit and they were just dumping the sand back in to try to increase the land mass. Okay, so it does happen. It's just that in Dubai, they've mastered it by creating land. Okay, man-made land. Or it's land, but it's done by man. Okay, erosion is just the opposite, but alluvium is the material that is being deposited. Now, reliction is the creation of dry land by the gradual withdrawal of water. Now, funny thing is, I had a student in class, and I'm going to tell the story forever and ever and ever because it's funny as heck. The way she remembered reliction is, she said, if it's dry, you have to lick it. Yeah, okay. So I'm not really sure how she got that, but whatever it was, she was able to remember that, and I tell it in our class now, and of course I get the same reaction. It's like everybody's trying to figure out, well, what does that mean? And they laugh. But I guess the idea is that if the property is reliction, so reliction is the dry land that is gradual withdrawal of water. So that's how she was able to remember that reliction would be dry lands created by the withdrawal of water. Okay, so I mean, hopefully that's helpful. Not sure if it will be or not, but I tell the story because it's funny. All right, further down on that page, personal property versus real property. Everything that you can be owned may be classified as either real or personal property. Anything that can be inherited is referred to as a hereditament. And I'm probably saying the word wrong, but you get it, it's there. It means to inherit property or to inherit something. Okay? On page 69, if you look there, you see property versus personal property versus real property. Again, in personal property, we call somehow, some way. Did I miss a whole thing on littoral? I'm looking at my book here, and I don't see. Oh, here it's at the bottom there. Okay, jeez, I'm looking right at it. Sorry about that. Before we go into personal property, let's talk about littoral. So littoral is land bordering oceans or large lakes, otherwise known as LOL. Large oceans and lakes. And we need to understand that the difference between riparian and littoral, and if you look down at that figure 5.4, it will show you what that means. So the mean high water mark ends at the end of the property, so much so that the body of water is owned by the public and it is navigable. So we can't confuse it with, like, say, the Delaware River, where you can get, ships up and down the river. Right? That's a large river, very, very large, mile across in some spots, and very deep. So we have to remember when we're talking about LOL or large water, that it means more like oceans, lakes, okay, things like that are navigable. So the property ownership ends at the water's edge. Okay, now personal property and real property. Okay, so we have personal property. Well, of course, I'm a little behind on my screenshots here again. There's the increase of land by, I should probably just pay attention to the screenshots, but I think we have a little pop quiz coming up here. Let's see here. Quiz. All right. Civil Rights Act of 1866 says that you may not discriminate based on, and the answer is race. And hopefully that noise will stop. Okay, great. So remember from fair housing that 1866 was based on race, right? Race and color. And then further throughout 1968, 1974, and so forth and so on, they started adding on more classes. New Jersey has the strictest fair housing laws. Okay, so let's remember that. Okay, personal property, also known as personalty, is the property that does not fit into the definition of real property. Real estate is fixed and immovable. You need to know that. Obviously, because the fact that it is fixed and immovable, and the fact that you know that may mean that we have a test question, right? Okay, only makes sense. Now I'm not talking about mobile homes. That's why they call them mobile homes. They can move. Talk about things that are fixed. Personal property is movable. Okay, personal property is movable, such as a lamp, chairs, furniture, refrigerator. Now the question is a stove, is that movable? Or is it considered immovable?
So,
It's immovable, yeah. Get it out. And the reason because it's attached to the real property. If it's gas, it's attached to the gas. And in addition to that, there should be an anti-tipping device in the back of the stove that is attached to the property. Therefore, it's attached to the stove, and the stove can't be moved. Now, the refrigerator, movable? Okay. So when we start to define what's personal property and what is not, it's going to lead us to the question about the fixture. And that's in the next topic. But personal property is known, and we call it chattels. Now, I always say that to the class that, you're going to know chattels only in this class. And once you get out of class, if you use the word chattels, everybody will know that you're new. Okay? It's the truth, right? We don't use chattels in our vernacular these days. But chattels is the personal property. It includes furniture, clothing, refrigerators, and bonds. In order to transfer those chattels, we would use a bill of sale normally. Now, in our normal practice, we don't break out a bill of sale and add the refrigerator and the washer, dryer, and all the things that might be staying. We do include those in our contract. However, they should be being transferred with a bill of sale, whereas the property ownership itself is transferred with a deed. All right. And in order to transfer the property, you have to have a deed. It's got to be signed by the grantor, which is the seller. Okay. So, look here a little further down. The word severance. Okay. The transformation of real property to personal property by cutting down a tree is the example we give, but severance is to sever, to cut off. All right, we cut off. Severity is a word we'll see pretty soon about how we hold title, but we cut off, meaning that if you have a tree which was once part of the property and you cut it down, it now becomes personal property. You will get a question with regards to that on the test. They're going to ask you about the tree. It's attached. And now we have a pile of firewood. Is the firewood personal property or is it real estate? It's personal property, right? If it's attached and it's still the tree, it's part of the real estate. Yeah, see, once you chop that tree down, it now becomes personal property, and it's a commodity. Just like oil. Okay, let's go around with that. Oil in the ground, not in a leaky oil tank. I'm talking about oil in the ground is considered part of the real estate, right? If you extract the oil from the ground and put it into a tank, it is now personal property. Therefore, when we're at closing, a lot of times we will give credit for oil that's in the tank because it's a commodity. We could actually, if we took it really a step further, if there was a pile of wood out there, we could actually give credit for the pile of wood because it's personal property. We don't do that, though, because that's too tedious. But we could. All right. So the reverse situation also is possible. Personal property can be changed to real property. And how would that be? How would we look at that? What would be a case where it's reversed, where something personal became, part of the real property? Trade fixtures, perhaps, if the tenant leaves that fixture that was designed for their business, if they leave it in there and it's attached to the building, it now becomes real property if they don't take it out. Yeah. AC unit, right? Because that's personal when you buy it, and then you can bring it home, and you then install it, and then it becomes permanent. It's now part of cement in a sidewalk, wood porch. The wood porch is always the one that kind of brings it home for me. You go to the Home Depot, you order up a bunch of wood, they deliver it, they dump the wood in the driveway. What is it there? What is it right at that moment? It's personal property. Then your contractor comes over, they start building the deck, and it's now attached. It now becomes part of the real property. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so when we go through this test, we're going to talk about that in a second, the test to decide what's a fixture and what's not a fixture. This will start to make more sense. Vegetation falls into two classes: trees, perennial bushes, and grasses that do not require cultivation are considered real estate. Annual crops, annual crops such as wheat, corn, and vegetables are known as implements. Please highlight that because that is a test question with regards to implements. So anything that is an annual crop, again, such as wheat, corn, garden vegetables, are implements and are considered personal property. So, in addition to what we're starting to learn about personal property and real estate, if you were selling a farm and let's say it had corn on the farm, okay, like corn stalks, and it could be a possibility that that farmer will take the crops with them. In other words, dig up all of the crops, take that with them, okay, and it not be part of the property because it is considered personal property. It also may be the case where that farmer says, well, hey, I've got annual crops that come up and I want to get paid for it. Okay, I haven't been involved in that situation myself, but I know that to be the case where you got farms in the more rural areas and even around here, they grow stuff, vegetables, corn, so forth and so on, and they want to get reimbursed for that in addition to the real estate. So moving forward, we have to consider that or take into consideration when we're dealing with that type of property. And those are known as implements. Unless it has been removed from its axle and permanently attached to the land and by a foundation, a mobile home is considered personal property. Okay, mobile homes are considered personal property unless they've been removed from their axle and permanently attached to the land to a foundation. This does become tricky for us, especially with financing. There are some financing companies that look at that and say, okay, well, that's a mobile home. All right, well, if the axle has been removed and it's permanently attached, it's now considered real property. And they will come out and determine by taking off the shroud around the bottom, the valance, and looking to see if it's been attached by straps or how it's attached. I've had that problem several times throughout my career, where the home is one of those a modular home, okay, and then the mortgage company says no, it's a home. Well, now they got to come out and they inspect it and they see that it's strapped in, or if it's not been strapped in, they actually require it to be strapped in for them to do financing. Okay, so it's something we will experience at some point. Real estate brokers may legally broker the resale of mobile homes and manufactured homes that are titled as motor vehicles, but we have to adhere to the DMV's requirements and be involved in the sale of mobile homes. Now, personal property that has been permanently attached to the land or the building would be considered, we talked about some of them, but the heating system, cabinets, basketball nets that are permanently attached, by way of cement and so forth. An article that was once personal property but has been so attached to land or to a building that is now considered to be part of the real estate as a fixture. Okay? We talk about properties on page 69, right-hand side. An article owned by the tenant and attached to a rented space for the use of conducting business is known as a trade fixture. Okay, probably want to highlight that. Oh, by the way, in the books too, you see the bold terms. Usually what precedes that is a definition. So if we go over something and we don't tell you to highlight that, that's probably an area you want to highlight as well, because that's somewhere in one of the test questions. Okay, examples of trade fixtures could be barber chairs, sinks, store shelves, bar equipment, chicken coops, things like that. Trade fixtures do differ from other fixtures in the following ways. Fixtures belong to the owner of the real estate, but trade fixtures usually are owned and installed by the tenant for his or her business. Okay. Trade fixtures are removable, and fixtures are real estate. So trade fixtures are personal property for this point and purpose. Now, again, if the tenant fails to take them with them, then they become part of the real property. Okay? So far, so good? All right, any questions up to this point? Okay, this is a pretty decent chapter. And we'll go back through and kind of reiterate what we have to really know. On page 70, the test. Now, this is regarding the method that anybody would go through, judge, court, us, we have to determine whether or not the disputed item, if there's a dispute over the item, if it's personal property or a fixture. So the courts apply 4 basic tests to determine whether a disputed article is a fixture, which is part of the real estate, or removable personal property. These tests are based on the following. Number 1, the intention of the party annexing the item. The intention. What was their intention? Was it something such as a trade fixture? Okay, was it part of used as part of their business? Was it part of the property before? When we're talking about a residential property, let's talk about that Tiffany lamp. I always bring up Tiffany lamps. I don't know if you're a fan of Tiffany lamps or not. It's okay if you are. I'm personally not. I don't see the allure to it, other than the fact that Tiffany made them, or the Tiffany company. But in any direction, we have to look at that. And when we look at a Tiffany lamp, if we have say a typical tract home, ranch style home, no basement, living room, dining room, kitchen, 3 bedrooms, and they have a Tiffany lamp attached in the dining room, we have to start to ask ourselves these questions. What was the intention of the party when they were attaching that, when they were annexing it? Is this lamp an heirloom? Was it a gift, a marital gift? You know, somebody gave them this beautiful lamp to enjoy, allegedly, supposedly. And what does it do for the property? You walk in the house, are you focused in, are you fixed on that lamp? And that's the reason why you bought the property, or you made an offer on the property. So we go into number 2. So the first one is intention. Yes. Mm-hmm.
What about water rights?
What is it again?
Water rights. Right.
Oh, okay. I never heard of that before.
So is that
That's considered personal property.
what if it's attached to it?
But if you have a water ice stand and it's attached to the house, we have to go through this battery of these things to find out, number 1, what's the intention of the party? Was it because they were doing a little business out of their house? Is it a trade fixture? Is it something that was an amenity to the kitchen that they thought was kind of neat? Okay, so we have to go backwards and use this. That would probably be a really good case. Something specialized like that. What is the intention here? What if they had this like super high intensity cappuccino maker? It's hardwired in, and it's plumbed in with the water and all that. What's the intention of the party? What was the intention of them putting that in the kitchen? Was it an amenity, or was it really simply something that they were taking with them? So then we go to question number 2, which was the method of the annexing. How is it attached? How is it attached to the property? Okay, is it, again, is the water line plumbed in? Is the gas line plumbed in? If just plugging it into the wall doesn't make it, that's not a method of attachment, because you could unplug it and take it with you, like a one of those little toaster ovens. Okay, it's an oven. We call it a toaster oven, but when we plug it in the wall, we can unplug it, and you can move it around. Now, if it had a gas line going to it, which was more permanently attached, you wouldn't be able to move that around so easily, right? And the third one here is the adaptation of the article to the real estate. Again, we go back to, what's the adaptation for that ice cream maker, or that ice cone maker, or whatever, a pop machine, cappuccino machine? What's the adaptation to the property? Does it make sense? I go back to Tiffany lamps. What's the adaptation to that? It's really out of place, to be quite honest. You have a tract home, not really an expensive home. You have a $4,000 lamp in the dining room. Okay, it doesn't balance out right. Okay, so we have to then ask ourselves the adaptation of the article to the real estate, and then finally, number 4, the relationship of the parties. That's where the shrewdness, I think, comes in. Is the Tiffany lamp example could have been an heirloom, could have been given, it could have been given as a gift, perhaps a birthday gift, whatever. Is it something that they went out and purchased for putting in that dining room for that, and to make that space updated or not? The relationship of parties. So how it works and how important is it when we go out to list the property for sale? That's why we have to do a visual inspection of the property. We have to ask questions. Something that looks out of place, we have to say, hey, is that Tiffany lamp staying? What does it mean to you? And we have to exclude it from our listing. and make sure it's clear, because if we have a buyer that goes out, the reason for them buying that property was that Tiffany lamp, and that lamp is removed and or replaced, and they do their walkthrough, and when they go to final settlement, there's going to be a problem. If they are saying, well, hey, I bought the property because of that, nowhere was it mentioned that that was not staying. That's where this legal battle becomes a problem. So then if it goes into court, they'll ask the same questions. The intention of the party, the method of annexing, the adaptation of the article to the real estate, and the relationship. And that's how the court system will define as to whether or not they have to put the lamp back in there, or the ice cream making machine, or the cappuccino machine, or the water ice machine, whatever it may be, the hot tub. I guess we can go down the line and talk about all kinds of things that could be a problem, right? It could be, for example, I have a property right now. It's something small. It's a ramp, a wheelchair handicap ramp. Now, it's attached to the front steps by way of 4 screws. The adaptation to the, we have to go through this intention, the legal fixture. Is it a fixture or is it personal property? Well, the intention of the party that annexed it, well, the gentleman that needed the ramp, because it's a wheelchair, needed the ramp to get into the house. Okay? The method of annexing, well, it was screwed into the cement, so it was permanent. Also, you could take the screws out, it becomes detached. The adaptation of the article to the real estate, again, it was his particular way of getting in and out of the house. Someone else may need that ramp to get in and out of the house. And then finally, the relationship to the parties, again, it was specifically bought and purchased for his needs. The dispute is, of course, whether it's a fixture or it's personal property. Currently, it's still attached, so it's a fixture. Soon, hopefully, we'll have come to an agreement, and it will become personal property again. Okay? These things do come up in the course of our business. All right? Any questions regarding that chapter? That's a relatively small chapter. Any questions? So let's kind of go back through a couple things here. I want to also talk about this thing called the front door key. The front door key, because you might find this as a test question. I believe I put that in there as a test question. Because although these tests may seem simple, there is no uniformity in the court decision regarding what constitutes a fixture versus not. But let's look at this. How about a front door key? Is that a fixture or is that personal property? Okay, personal property. What else? You think it's a fixture? Okay. Okay, can't get in the house without it? Okay, so it's going to be one or the other, right? Obviously, that's what the question is. The answer is the front door key is a fixture. And you are correct in stating that it is required to operate the lock. Because it's attached to the door, right? Isn't that kind of crazy? Yeah. So let's suppose that you have a key, a fancy key, and it's the 76ers. I see you're a fan back there. It's one of those fancy keys that says, is that now personal property or is that fixture?
This is personal property? I mean, I guess
it's a fixture, yeah. It doesn't matter if that key's got gold in it, because you need the key to operate the lock, right? Pretty interesting. So that's one thing. How about wall-to-wall carpeting? Personal property? Let's say you tossed, Kevin?
Because it can be attached.
Okay. Wall-to-wall carpeting.
Something about EAREA.
Okay. Wall-to-wall is attached, right? EAREA rug is not attached. Yeah, so that's something, again, like this rug here, it's attached. At some point, either at the edges or in the middle, it's attached. But if we had an EAREA rug in here, that would be considered personal property. So yes, wall-to-wall carpeting is a fixture. So you see, it can be a little interesting and complicated at the same time, and, at least I find it interesting. Maybe I just have a boring sense of what is interesting and what's not. But again, it's one of those things where we got to go through the test because it does come up, and it could create us problems in a contract when you go to closing and the Tiffany lamp is not there anymore, or the EAREA rug's not there anymore, or the carpet, the permanent wall-to-wall carpet has now been rolled up. My own personal experience is this. My second transaction in real estate was interesting. It happened very quickly, actually, on an open house. I sat in an open house, and client came through, and they bought the property, which is neat. Except for the husband and wife selling the property. They were to get divorced, and it was not really a nice situation. It wasn't nice at all. Matter of fact. And we go to closing. I had the buyers, and we didn't do a walkthrough. It's the first time and only time I've never done a walkthrough. Didn't do the walkthrough. I get a call because we had pagers. We didn't have cell phones, so I had a call. I was out. It was Friday night. I was out getting a steak dinner because that's how I thought I was going to celebrate all my victories. And I get the page. I call them back. Hey, what's up? Hey, the hot water's not coming on. All right. I say, hey, go down and check the pilot. Oh, we did. We can't find the hot water heater. I said, no, it's got to be there. The hot water heater is there. Okay. They're looking around. Nope, it's not there. I said, okay, well, when I'm done my dinner, I'll stop on by. It was on the way home. I get over to the house, and sure enough, I can't find the hot water heater. I looked in the closets. I looked in the basement. I looked everywhere. I looked outside. I thought, well, it's got to be here. Finally, I looked behind the heater, and snip, snip, pipes are cut. The seller took the hot water heater out. He just installed the hot water heater only days before, and he thought that was his. He said, well, it's mine. I bought it, and it's my personal property, and I took it with me. Well, you see, it's a funny story, but I can actually relate to it now, because when we go through this legal test, if I were thinking the way he was thinking, he was like, okay, well, what's the intention of the property? Well, the hot water heater had broke, and he had to fix it, so he was replacing a fixture. The hot water heater's plumbed in. Water pipes were plumbed in, soldered in. It was gas. So, again, the method of annexing the item was the same that you would for anything that's a fixture. The adaptation, well, you need the hot water heater in order to have hot water to the house. And it was part of the contract saying that there was hot water to the house. And the relationship to the party, which is where he failed. He thought it was his because he bought it. Long story short is Saturday morning we had to get a hot water heater put in. And of course, worked it out where the seller had to come up with money. But you see, something like that, now that seems like a crazy story, but that's the truth. My second transaction in life, and I got a problem with hot water. I didn't know what to do. I'm telling the guy, go downstairs. That's where that whole shifting things away from you come in. Look, my father's a plumber. I mean, he's a union plumber, so I know a little bit about that stuff. Not enough. I mean, not a lot, but enough to be dangerous. And I know to say, go downstairs and check the pilot. Check this, check that. And then, when people who are not familiar, you get over there and there's no hot water. It's like, okay, there's a problem. So we had to go through that test to determine. And again, there was really no test to determine the hot water heater needed to be there. All right. Hopefully that little story was fun for you. Oh, moral to the story is, always do a walkthrough. All right, always do a walkthrough. Never say, don't worry about it. No, always do a walkthrough. Always. All right, that basically sums up Chapter 5. Going forward, what you're going to want to do is review the summary, the terms in the back, the match review, and also the questions in the back. And of course, we will email you the 5 and 6 quizzes to go through. Okay, just real quick though, I want to go backwards to the bundle of rights. Make sure you kind of have your heads wrapped around that. I have this thing written down here, DEEP C. I'm not sure what the C is, but DEEP is the disposition, exclusion, enjoyment, and possession. That's how I remember it. Deep. Real estate's deep. So it's an acronym for you to remember: the possession, enjoyment, exclusion, and disposition. Deep.
How do you call it?
DEEP. Deep. I remember it being like just real estate is really deep. Yeah, it's a little acronym to remember that. Also remember about the surface rights, the air rights, and the below surface rights, the mineral rights. And where a lot of students seem to get hung up on is with regards to riparian rights and littoral rights. Yeah, so remember littorals, LOL, large bodies of water.
Right.
Riparian is river, non-navigable.
So what I did was I would just put preparing R's for river, L's for lake. So
Yeah.
The answer's right in the question.
It really is. It really is. And sometimes you're going to get a question where you're like, well, is that really a large? That's why I bring up the Delaware River. That's a large body of water, but it's a river.
Right.
Okay, it's navigable, so it's going to be confusing many times. What also hangs people up is avulsion, accretion, alluvion, erosion, and reliction. And what I could say to you that might be a good way to remember this is you might want to do flashcards for those and sort of test yourself on those. Reliction, I gave you some crazy ways to remember it. You got to lick it to make it wet again. If it's dry, you got to lick it. So that may help you put that in perspective. Erosion, we pretty much know because we've been hearing about it since we were children, about the beach erosion. And of course, alluvion is the material that's deposited, and accretion is the increase, because inside of accretion is the word increase. And the only one you'd have to really wrap your head around would be avulsion. And if you remember, I don't even know how to remember avulsion, but you're basically avoiding, and you're just changing the direction of the stream. If that's helpful or not. Probably not. Okay, let's take a little bit of break here, and we'll move on.